Hello again, everyone. Paul and Laura here. We are going to go over the required text you need for your studies into the paradigms. This effort will help you to uncover the mysteries of the kingdom for yourselves. We will do our best to explain the texts and briefly how to use them. The two texts you see on your screen are the Big Strongs and the Little Strongs. When Paul uses the phrase Big Strongs, he is talking about this book, the New Strong's Exhaustive Concordance of the Bible. When Paul uses the phrase Little Strongs, he is talking about the New Strong's Expanded Dictionary of Bible Words, which is this book. It is simply easier to refer to these two books as Big Strongs and Little Strongs. We will cover the Big Strongs first and then the Little Strongs. Both of these books have the Strong's Greek in them. Paul likes to boast that he does exorcisms specifically on these two books.
Yeah, specifically and only. Circumcision represents sin, so we cut it out, right? Or we cut it off. Greek is a foreskin that must be exorcised and circumcised from our studies. Throw the bloody thing to the ground, just as Zipporah did in Exodus 4:25. Greek is the guilt and sin that we buy and sell from the church. I cut out all the Greek of both strong books, which are at the back of the book, and rebound them. They are much easier to use, they are lighter, and now these textbooks are clean.
This is the Big Strongs. The ISBN number for ordering or finding this book is, it's on your screen and I'm going to tell it to you as well, 0-8407-6750-1. If I went over that too quickly, you can always pause the video, come back, write it down. You're going to want to write down the ISBN numbers for all of the books we're going to cover today, and we'll put them on your screen just like you see them right now. The Big Strongs is very useful in that it contains English words in alphabetical order for easily looking up these words. If you know the English word you're searching for but cannot remember where it's found in the Bible, the Big Strongs lists all the verses where the English word is found.
Important note, the Big Strongs contains proper pronouns such as the names of people and city. These names and cities are not flagrant, meaningless, or useless space fillers in the text. They are all paradigms. They all have an underlying mystery current beneath the literal text when we can get to the Hebrew root of the word. For instance, Israel is always a lower order paradigm of the two lower kingdoms. Babylon is a euphemism and metaphor for delusion, lies, and the abomination of desolation of the bowl that must be destroyed before we enter the hundredfold kingdom of Yah. This is why the text constantly repeats that Babylon must fall. Where does Babylon fall to? Back to the earth, just as we see in the bowl judgments of Revelation 16:1. Babylon is a bowl that must be destroyed before we cross over. Another proper noun, or proper name, is Mount Zion. Go to Zion, the very end. Mount Zion is another metaphor for the bowl. The 2022 mountain part of this idiomatic expression indicates the above paradigm. The head, the bowl, is above. The mountain is above. Mount Zion is not a time or a place. It is a spiritual condition of the hundredfold one mind of Elohim. It is the state of mind of being and having the one mind of Elohim. It is being the inner wheel of Ezekiel's wheel. Now, in other works, I write out how I came to all of these conclusions, but we're just pointing out how to use the Big Strongs at this point. I don't remember an easier text to demonstrate that names are metaphors for spiritual paradigms than in Ezekiel 23. In this case, Oholah is the 60-fold older sister of the 30-fold Oholibah. Note that both sisters commit spiritual adultery if you read that text. just as our brown section of the pyramid graphic depicts. What does the brown section of the pyramid graphic depict? Spiritual death. Both 30 and 60-fold lower kingdoms are spiritually dead. So Laura is pointing to Oholah and Oholibah.
We are now going to discuss the little strongs. The ISBN number for ordering or finding this book is once again on your screen, and I'll tell it to you. 0-7852-4676-2. The Little Strongs has an English section, then a Hebrew section, and then a Greek section, just like the other book.
Unless it's exercised.
Right, which Paul's is. You will never need to access the last section of the Greek. You will never be tempted to go there if you excise this useless section. There are no mysteries to be found, connected, or uncovered in the Greek language. It is not possible to understand a single eternal spiritual paradigm from looking up Greek words. It is a complete waste of time. In each of these sections, the English and the Hebrew, the book and its data is also laid out alphabetically.
English, this is the English word index.
Right.
That's what Laura's talking about.
That's right. The English index section in the front of the book will not give you chapters and verses like the Big Strong's does, or where a word is found. The English index will give you a list of Strong's numbers and their Hebrew coded words in alphabetical order.
Let's don't use that one. Let's find something.
Paul's looking for a good example.
Yeah. Okay, glory. Where's glory?
He's going to choose glory.
Okay, glorious here.
Glorious.
There's 1, 2, 3. Why don't you point those out?
Right.
Let me zoom in.
Right. He's going to zoom in. Give us just a moment. So we're in the English section of the Little Strongs, and we're going to choose the word glorious.
Do goats.
Do goats?
Yeah. Actually, there's only one there.
No, it's good. Goat.
No, it's all. There's a bunch of Greek words there.
Okay.
I don't want to do Greek. Let's see. Glorified. Do glorified. Left side.
Okay. All right. English word glorified. Alphabetical order, just look under G. You're going to have 1, 2, 3 Hebrew words that are all translated into English as glorified. It gives you the Strong's number 1922, 3513, and 6286.
And why not 1392?
We don't do 1392 because I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but it's italicized.
It's italicized.
Once you get to the italicized list of words, they are Greek.
Stop.
It's the Greek words. You don't even need to look them up. So,
Okay.
For instance, just like we looked up the word glorious or glorified, if one does not know the Hebrew word for a bird, one looks up in the English front index section a bird in alphabetical order. There, one will find several Strong's numbers for birds. Then, one can either go to the numerical number in the Little Strong's, or one can go to the Englishman's and find every chapter and verse where the bird number is used. The Hebrew section is also laid out alphabetically and numerically. Even if you do not know the Hebrew alphabet, you will use the Strong's number to look up a particular word. If you know the Strong's number, you can look up the word and find its use and its meaning. So let's do that now. Are we still on glorious? Oh, we're on bird now?
Yeah, I just pulled up bird.
Okay.
I think it's there.
Okay. So we've looked up the word bird, and our first offering is Strong's number 5775. So we're going to go into the Hebrew section, and all you have to do is look up the number 5775.
And if you're familiar with the Hebrew language at this point, when we get to the birds, 5775, there'll be other cognate-related words in 5776 or 5774 and so forth.
Right. So
we're not going to explain any of that. I'm just pointing that out right now.
Good. No, that was a good point. Because some people do know the cognate.
Right.
So 5775, here it is. I just looked up the number. I don't even have to know Hebrew, but this is the word. And you'll get a brief explanation of the word and how many times it's used.
Right. Note how many times or how many different ways that this one singular word is translated. Let's see, 59 times as bird, 19 times as flying, 2 times as fly, and so forth. A lot of these strong words are translated a dozen, sometimes 24 different times. Why? Because the translators had no idea, had no concept what the spiritual paradigm value of a given word was. So they had to have a bunch of different meanings to apply to the different texts that they were trying to interpret.
That's right. Keep in mind, all of these books we're talking about today are nothing more than data collection that people did who came before us.
Audits. They're audit reports.
Audit reports. So we're going to use them to discover and prove the spiritual paradigms and learn the language of the Father.
Okay, so are you done?
Done.
Okay. All right. So be sure not to waste time looking up words when you're using any of these books, textbooks, looking up words in the Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, or Esther. There are no mysteries in these books that are not already found in the remaining books. There are a few exceptions with the Chronicles, but I point those out in my written work. This will expedite what can be an otherwise time-consuming process. I hate wasting time, and I am disabused of having spent time going to these books to find spiritual fruit. There is none there.
And we appreciate that, Paul, for telling us we don't have to go there.
Yeah, it's really a good thing to know. Okay. Additionally, for the beginner not familiar with this process, learn to identify the poetic text from the narrative text. We pointed this out in the one of the 2 videos. The poetic text is usually indented and what do they call it? Indented.
Yeah.
But it's centered. It's centered.
Centered, yeah. Especially
centered.
in the King James. And that's another point. When you're going to get a Bible, King James, New King James,
right,
you want to make sure that the poetic verses are centered.
Make very sure that you're getting a Bible or using a Bible with the poetic text. This is extremely important for what we're trying to accomplish here. Okay, so we're going to learn to identify the poetic and narrative text. Limit your searches to any poetic text in the beginning wherever it is written. Nobody ever teaches from the poetic text. Why? Because the poetic text is a complete enigma without understanding the hidden meanings of the individual word and number paradigms. We never know what to think of serpents, worms, maggots, locusts, grasshoppers, dragons, jackals, unicorns, leviathan, monsters, or beasts, etc. When we read the text and see idiomatic expressions of Mount Zion, House of Bethel, House of Thorns, Ark of the Covenant, Holy of Holies, birds of the air, beasts of the field, and hundreds more, we are at loath to understand these texts unless we know the paradigms. Once we understand some of the basic paradigm values of words in the poetic, then we can better understand the hidden messages that permeate the narrative text.
The last textbook we will cover over with you in this video is the Englishman's Hebrew Concordance of the Old Testament. Paul refers to this text simply as your Englishman's. The ISBN number for this book is 978 1-56563-208-0. This book is invaluable to you as a researcher and seeker of the paradigms and patterns of the Spirit of the Word. This book is laid out alphabetically and numerically as well, but only in Hebrew and only in the Strong's numbers. Like the other reference books, you do not have to know Hebrew to be able to use this book. All you need to know is the Strong's number, and you can find the word you want to search out. Once you get the Strong's number of a word, all of the entries connected with that particular Hebrew word are in English. I just want to show them.
Good. Good.
Paul's going to look up a good one. Right.
What do you want?
I'm just showing that if you look up the Strong's number, all the other references are in English.
Right. Each use of that one particular word is listed right here in the whole Bible. Well, in the whole Old Testament part of the Bible.
Old Testament. Good point.
Okay.
You will find a list of single-line excerpts of Bible scriptures for that single Strong's Hebrew word. You will be able to get a feel for the overall paradigm meaning simply by reading down through the single-line excerpts. However, this is not enough. You must look up every chapter and verse where this word is found, and you will need to superscript the word in your Bible along with the paradigm value that Paul has assigned for the word, for that particular word. You will be able to find the paradigm assignments little by little as you read and study the individual documents and then that Paul sends you, and then exhaustively when you receive the complete concordance from Paul.
Okay. First, this textbook is where I spent over 99% of my time, apart from the Bible itself. The Little and Big Strong is used only about 0.02% of the time. This does not, however, discredit the necessity of the first two textbooks. By exhaustively looking up each word listed in the Englishman's Concordance, one will begin to, or one should pay attention to certain patterns that are signals that warn us of mysteries. Here are some of these signals that should cause us to stop reading and listen closely to the Spirit of the Word. Pairs. Any single strong word repeated twice in the same verse or the same proximal text. These are a sign that a mystery is being portrayed by the Father in the inspiration of the writings. Word associations. Judgment words are always contextually connected to the lower kingdom paradigms of the first and second kingdoms of the spiritually dead. The Father never judges negatively or derogatorily the hundredfold upper kingdoms. Praising and edifying Elohim texts always reference hundredfold words like glory, righteousness, majesty, beauty, and a multitude of hundreds more. The 30 and 60-fold spiritually dead is never lifted up. They are always excoriated in derision. With the knowledge of the three folds and four kingdoms, one can easily know where one is personally on the spiritual scale of life or death. Generally speaking, when we open the text to either any of the poetic, generally Psalms or Job, we read or Isaiah and Jeremiah, we read about all the judgment. It's one judgment after the other. And what we do and what we shouldn't do is we point our finger and say, yeah, those guys over there, they're doing all of this stuff that the Father is judging them about. That is the wrong attitude. The judgment is about all of us. We're all guilty of the sin, but we don't understand what the sin is in terms of the two sins of blasphemy. Now, you have to go back to the previous tubes to understand that completely, and I hope that you already do. But if you understand the two sins of blasphemy, there's only two sins that you can commit that the Father is judging or not judging us about. and that is the 2 sins of blasphemy. But I'll leave you to go back and look at that tube to study that more. Numbers is another indicator of mysteries of the kingdom. This may be the single most easy sign to recognize a mystery in the text. Most of the time, numbers make no sense in the literal text. In the mysteries, number 10, or quantities of 10, these are always referring to the kings of the next age, no matter what the literal text may be saying. Number 4, or quantities of 4 things, is almost always speaking of the 4th kingdom of the kings. Count on it. Number 7 is emphatically, indefatigably, corresponding to the kings as well. Not just the Messiah king, but all 12 kings. Patterns of up and down. Any word or phrase that depicts a downward trajectory or direction, this is always a guilt and sin paradigm context. Cast it in stone. It never changes. Even in the first 5 Torah books, ashes and blood that gets thrown to the base of the altar, these are paradigmatic guilt and sin paradigms hidden in the word. To fall, throw down, go down, and melt. These are all examples of guilt and sin that goes down back to the earth, just as we see in Revelation 16:1. There is no spiritual life without first pouring out our guilt and sin back to the earth where we got it from. To lift up, exalt, to go up on high, these are all high order paradigms of the 3rd and 4th kingdoms. Patterns of buy and sell. To give, take, offer, get, bring, etc. These are all buy and sell paradigms. The bowl or Super Bowl paradigm is a cinch. Consider how many times the 1004 word house or bait is used. Every tent, tabernacle, palace, or temple is a bowl paradigm. When Yahweh uses that, he will fill your house. No, when Yah says that, he will fill your house, tent, or temple with thorns. He is saying that he will send you strong delusion from 2 Thessalonians. Thorns is a delusion paradigm. Go to your little Strongs, look up thorns in the index up front, and look up every chapter and verse for every translated word for thorn. One will see, and it is irrefutable, that thorns is a delusion paradigm. There are several different Hebrew words translated as thorns. Having said that, it will only take 20 minutes or less to look up each chapter and verse. It will take some time to learn to recognize these patterns, but the sooner one does, the sooner one will spiritually climb Jacob's ladder. It is advisable to have the last written work that I offer, called the Concordance Paradigms, to learn of all of these paradigms. It is currently over 300 pages. Remember, one must first complete reading all the written work to receive this last work. In this book, I list every noun and verb in a 4-column numerical list. What I have in view here on your screen is an excerpted 20 or 24 pages from the 320 pages. And what it does is it lists in 4 columns, as you can see, all the sequentially numbered strong numbers and their paradigm value next to each word. So 1406 is a Magog paradigm. 1406 is translated as roof in your Bible. Now we think we've been reading this Gog and Magog thing in Ezekiel 38 and 39 like it's going to be some war of the end time. It is not. It is not going to happen. It is a metaphor. It is a paradigm. It is Gog and Magog. And I write about that, so I'm not going to explain it right now. Over to the right, we have the worm, 1501, is another Magog paradigm. The garden, 1588, and 1593 and 1594. These are super bowl or one mind or bowl paradigms. All of those paradigm values mean the same thing essentially. Down at the bottom here we got number 1462, another Magog paradigm. It's a grasshopper. So every time we see these bugs, generally, locust is a Magog paradigm. All these bugs in the scripture are not just random words that mean nothing. There's a paradigm value associated to each one of them. And in one of the last works, in fact it may be the last one, it is Gog and Magog, that's the last one before yes. So in Gog and Magog, for instance, I will point out all of the meanings of these words. Then over on the right, you have 1966, the OG. It's an OG paradigm. I'm not going to bother explaining what OG is. You can read about it later on. That's Lucifer. In 2119, down here in the bottom right, that is translated as worm. That's a king, Super Bowl, OG, MG, one mind paradigm. Okay, so let's see. Each listed strong Hebrew number is followed by one or more eternal spiritual paradigm values. That's why you see some of these words have more than one acronym, abbreviated acronym, next to the number. I'm trying to find one with 3. A lot of them have 3. I don't have room to put 4. There, here's one right down here, 2015. Guilt and sin, judgment and delusion. Okay, so a lot of these words in this excerpt of some 20 pages have many more than one paradigm value. One mind, Super Bowl, Holy of Holies. Okay, they all essentially mean the same thing in that particular case. Okay, so let's see. Many or most words have more than one paradigm value assignment. Every paradigm is explained in detail in the introductory portion of the 320-page Concordance. There are over 200 pages of commentaries of hundreds of individual Hebrew words that depict the paradigm mysteries in that 320 pages. In many cases, I reveal much knowledge through these paradigm commentaries that I never write in a document. One needs to be and get serious about his or her spiritual walk by pursuing this concordance work. The people in the States should be leading this charge, but they are not. Proportionally, the Dutch in the Netherlands are devouring the paradigms and the eternal laws of the Spirit as the guilt and sin of their bowl pours back to the earth. Everything I write in English is being translated to the Dutch language. The same is happening in Germany. There are Facebook groups that are beginning to flourish and blossom both here and abroad.
The Facebook group is called Kingdom Paradigms of the One Mind. If you would like to come onto Facebook and join our group, simply do a search in Facebook for the group by title and you will find our group. Request to join. We are discussing all of the eternal spiritual paradigms there in open forum. We hope that this video has been helpful to all of you to be able to begin to use the tools and texts that you must have to research the spiritual paradigms for yourself. As always, Paul and I are available anytime for questions or comments. Paul is locust697@gmail.com. I am sagula.wordpress@gmail.com. We'll post this information below the video as well. So let us hear from you. In the next video, Paul and I will teach on the number 10 in Scripture and its spiritual meaning. Thanks to all of the subscribers to this Wormwood channel. Please share and tell others who you think may see and hear these truths.